we're on.
Oh, live stream is not enabled in this group. Let me see if let
It
me try
says
and
it's
see if
on my end, but
yeah, we're live on YouTube now. I'm just gonna see if I can get it to if I can make it live in this Facebook group. I wanted to try group settings, post format section. Post format. Oop, it was right there. Allow rooms in live audio broadcasts, reels, live videos. It says live videos broadcast in real time. It says it's on. Well, yeah, definitely it's there. But anyway, I'll fix that later then, so we won't go live to that Facebook group then. Anyway, so there. Hello, YouTube people.
we're back. This is our third one.
Yeah, this is great. So let's take off Summerland and we'll put it onto the regular. There we go. So we'll just put it onto Facebook. So, okay, yeah. So it's our third one. And I still have to go through all those videos we made too. There's a bunch of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
But I like this format, I think, a little better, going with the flow of it. So you have a short list of things we're going to dive into today. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, I think the goal is we're going to keep making videos for everybody and expanding on a lot of the radical undoing work. And then, Garrett, a lot of the work that you've done and maybe kind of how you've taken radical undoing and expanded on it. And for those of you that don't know me, I am one of the participants in Garrett's kind of weekly classes. And I've gotten a lot out of this work. So very motivated to help kind of share this with the world and help get it out there to more people because I think it can really help. But yeah, I mean, I guess today, man, let's just start. You know, we've talked about kind of some of these segments. We've talked about armoring. Before we got on the call, we were talking about the concept of fake Tai Chi. And I said, I think I've got something that would kind of maybe help us elaborate on that. Some of these exercises that we do, to me, open up emotional repression. And I look at this work as in some ways emotional repression work or working with repressed emotional content. And I'll give you an example. You have us do sometimes, you'll have us fake cry and then fake laugh, or you'll have us get really excited and then really depressed. And it seems like you're having us work on expressing emotions through our body, right? And allowing the free flow of those emotions. And for a lot of people, right, we learn from parents, society, trauma, life, don't get angry, don't get excited, don't show this emotion, don't show that emotion. And we shove it down in our body, and these segments start to armor and we contract. So to me, this work allows us to open that armoring and open that tension and allow for the free flowing of energy and life and emotion. And when we were talking about fake Tai Chi, you said, imagine a character that you like. I was a Star Wars guy growing up, and I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was like, learn to embody that wisdom or that groundedness. But if your body is contracted and you can't access emotions because it's all repressed, right? It's hard to embody the characteristics that you'd like either in yourself that you want to be or from a character. So let's start with some of that, how this work really allows people to open up to repressed emotional, content and things they wouldn't let themselves think and feel. And then let's tie it into fake Tai Chi because I think that's a really cool concept. No one talks about it. But I think that you have to have a solid foundation of opening up this body first and opening up to emotions and feelings first before that stuff.
Yeah, that's probably true, and I sometimes forget about that certain things now for me are easy that I think might be crippling for someone or seem crippling for someone who's, for example, believes that they have what's called social anxiety. It's sort of a disservice that people think of those things as illnesses or disease, because there's not really any legitimate reason for considering them disease. That's a whole topic for another time. But if people want to go deep with that, you could start with a book by a psychiatrist, actually, who was anti-forced treatment and anti-calling it mental illness. It was Thomas Zaz, and it was one of his many books that are good, but one's called The Myth of Mental Illness. So I'll leave that for people if they want to go check that out, but it's worth studying. So because they think of it as an illness, then a lot of times then they get treatment, which is essentially, where the cure is worse than the disease in a way. But all that stuff aside, so for example, I think I mentioned to you, a simple way to begin chipping away at what's called social anxiety is, number one, to just become curious about other people, first of all. To become genuinely curious, meaning instead of looking at the world through the lens of your ideas about it, to actually, so we've talked about this before, to start seeing instead of looking for. So start seeing, so that when you start seeing, you'll see a clerk at the store or people in the line, or whatever, people on the street, but you'll actually see so for example, the contours of their face, the way their clothing is resting on their shoulders, these different details that are all kind of beautiful regardless of their aesthetic, you know what I mean? All the way from the homeless, person sitting on the corner with their shopping cart full of trash to someone getting out of a brand new BMW with the sharpest clothes you've ever seen. There's something beautiful about just seeing before these other judgments are applied. So then that's what I mean when I say become genuinely curious, because then you can see everybody's a mystery. Each person is kind of a mystery to themselves, first of all, and then you recognize, these people are mysteries in and of themselves and a complete mystery to you, but they've made it this far through life, and you have no idea what their trajectory was before that. So you become curious, and then in becoming curious and then in seeing people, you'll automatically notice that a person has something you like. So for example, sometimes I like, those little fingernails with the paintings on them. You know what I mean? It'll be like for Halloween, there's 5 different ones, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like there's like a little story there or whatever. And that person had that done. It took a lot of time to get it done. They put money in it, and now this could easily be misconstrued as some sort of manipulative thing. I would not recommend doing this the way that it comes off in pickup artist stuff. I think that world is ridiculous, the pickup artist thing. I think the way of life is absurd, and it kind of ruins people for themselves and for each other. But so this isn't meant as a tactic like that. This is meant as getting you into real contact with yourself and with other people and with the world. And so you notice something you like, and this is for everybody. So for men, like men you see, women you see, old ladies, homeless people, whatever. Something that you enjoy, something that you like about them or their personality or their look or their jacket or something. Like sometimes I'll see guys with the beard, like I said before, that's just amazing. I'm like, dude, that's a cool beard, and I've never gotten a bad reception for saying that. Even I thought I would sometimes. I thought people are going to think I'm fucking crazy. But if you get into that headspace of like appreciation and then making a comment about what you appreciate about life, and you can even practice with like the birds or the flowers. Even as you walk by, just make a comment to yourself, and it's kind of a nice thing. It's a good feeling. If I go I say hi to the crows, for example, and I'm not sure if they're actually responding to me, but I have suspicions sometimes they are. Or flowers, I'll say like, nice. Just actually say it, not just walk by and kind of observe it. And then you'll get in the habit of the same thing. You'll start noticing with the people at the store, or the people at the bank, the people wherever. And even if it's just saying hello, but you're saying it with genuine interest and curiosity, those people will come to life. They'll be like, they'll receive it, they'll feel it. Like, oh, someone actually connected with me here today. So it's just a beautiful and interesting and fun thing to do. And it can open some doors in some ways too, but you're not doing it for that reason. And when you get into that habit of being that kind of magnanimous with men, women, everybody, people's dogs, stray cats, whatever, then the social anxiety thing kind of disappears. You're operating in it. You start entering a different world than the world where the social anxiety exists, which is only inside your head. You see? But if I told someone, this was a long segue, but if I told someone, just tell someone, go do that, and then they're fucking terrified of just even calling to order a pizza, you know what I mean? So what you said was accurate at the beginning. You kind of need some of the undoing work so that you can tolerate intensity, because being alive is intense. It's not meant to be any other way.
And wouldn't you agree? There's two extremes of intensity. There is the intensity of, can I handle my anger, my sadness, my rage, my helplessness, and can I handle my joy, my happiness, my aliveness? Because some people are completely cut off. They can only handle maybe all the heavier emotions, so to speak. I don't want to always classify, but you still see it, right? They can go into helplessness and they can handle their helplessness, but the moment they feel joy, they shut down and then they freeze and they can't handle it. So, it's that opening up of, it seems like it just comes back to freedom of flow, and that is everything. That's the whole spectrum of emotions.
In a certain sense, it's like everyone is wearing their favorite straitjacket, you know, and it's not only the typical one where it's got your arms tied behind your, tied around you like this. That's like a typical straitjacket they used to use in mental hospitals, and another argument against psychiatry right there. But it's like everyone has on their own custom designed straitjacket, and it's like has all the logos that they like, and it's like, instead of their arms this way, some people have it like this, or some people have it like all, and they're wearing it like a badge, like it's so awesome, like it's a brand new amazing car or something like that. And then they'll come to me, or come to the undoing stuff, and they want some result. So for example, to get over social anxiety, or to some of the other stuff people want, to do better with their business, or to be closer with their family, or to leave their partner, or to have a partner, or to just feel better, to get out of their head, or whatever. And I listen to what they say to some degree, but I usually am just listening to how their voice, the quality of their voice, looking at their face, and kind of figuring out whatever it's going to take to get them to be consistent doing the exercises, because that removes the straitjacket. And the thing is that they've been in the straitjacket for so long that all their wants and their desires are conditioned by life in the straitjacket. It's kind of, maybe the metaphor falls apart, but I'm saying the trap that they're in has conditioned them to want things in relation to living inside of a trap. But they don't know anymore. They forgot that there's outside of the trap. And once they're outside of that, and the trap is, of course, the world of words, the world of abstractions and concepts that are ungrounded. So lies in the mind. Once they're outside of that, all those desires, all those wishes, all those things are going to be different, So a lot of times then I don't get into discussing the details of the, like as we say, these positive emotions, negative emotions, all that stuff. That's part of the trap. You know what I mean? And it was cool that you caught yourself and said, well, I don't want to consider it one way or the other, because there's something about the intensity of grief or upset that's also kind of beautiful. The textures of it, like if you can just sit there in it and suffer, that opens up just like a flower blossoming that you never actually looked at before. Because again, you're looking for a way out before you even know where you are.
And something you've talked about is the sensation comes up, and then we label it, and we add a story to it, and we add meaning to it. And a lot of it I sense, especially in my journey, and I'm sure yours as well, it comes back to feeling a feeling, and giving ourselves permission to feel a feeling that we never let ourselves feel, usually because we've attached a story to it, or because when we first experienced it, we didn't have the capacity. But now it's like, as the adult self, you can feel what your little kid couldn't feel, and you have to feel your way out of it. It's like, if you're in helplessness, you can fight helplessness all you want, or you can acknowledge that you're helpless and say, okay, let me feel helpless. And it doesn't necessarily mean I am helpless or my world is helpless or I'll never get out, right? Like those are very key distinctions. But I think it takes coming back to this body work over and over again. Like you said, you have to do the exercises.
It makes everything else possible. Yeah, and I know there's occasionally people who find their way through the mess of the mind without the body work, and it blows my mind when they do. And sometimes those people will write books, and then I like to go to the Amazon reviews for specific books where I'm like, okay, because of the body work, I was able to grasp what this author was doing. But I bet for sure people are fucking lost. Both fans and haters of the work are totally lost. Like they become worshippers of, for example, in this whole non-duality world, people end up becoming worshippers of specific teachers and specific authors, but there's no grounding of that worldview. There's no connect. So it's lost in that world of words. So everything can be co-opted by the world of words. And I like to use the term the devil or Satan or whatever because he's the deceiver. That's what Jesus said, right? In the Bible, it's like Satan is the great liar, the great deceiver. And so he could use the Bible. He could use any teacher, anything that's stuck in words and that's ungrounded in your direct reality and your direct experience can be used against you in your mind. And then people might, not the haters, but people might be like, the people who grew up and had a bad time with Christianity are like, no, it's not the devil, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. The point is that just consider for a moment who else is injecting these thoughts into your head that lead you to feel bad, that lead you to want to hurt yourself or to emotionally or physically, that lead you to sort of shit on your own life or on other people, that lead you to take actions that you later regret. That's the enemy, right? That's an enemy. It's within, but that's not your friend. That's not a benevolent source of information, let's say. So that's why I find it useful to use that term. And then that's where psychology and psychiatry kind of have done a disservice, where they'll try to remove that from it and then get people onto this endless quest of sifting between positive and negative thoughts, positive and negative emotions. But there's no peace in that, no joy in that.
And that's probably a start, right, for some people. But wouldn't you agree? Any form of psychology has to integrate the body, because it all reinforces this mind-body split. Like most of us are cut off at the throat and all the energy's up here and no one can feel down to their toes and feel down into the earth. So they're caught in that suffering of the mind. You have to incorporate that body component.
Yeah, like go listen to, Jordan Peterson or some Jungian fans who can just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on all day about a million different myths, but are not grounded in their own body, and so then people are just thinking that ideas can save them, that just ideas alone can save them. But then there's never enough. You never get enough Jordan Peterson, or you never get enough. It's like endless amounts of videos and interpretations and just on and on and on and on and on. But where is the peace in that? Where is like the where's the joy in that? And yeah, I guess I don't know if it's a start for people or whatever. It's just such an endless world. The thing that's cool about it is once you get going with the body work, the breathing and the body work stuff, then you'll know for yourself. I wouldn't expect you to listen to me and go like, "Oh, I'm not okay." Garrett said, so I'm not going to read any Jung or whatever. No, there's some beautiful stuff that lineage produced, like Robert Johnson, his short little books. He about masculine psychology, she about feminine psychology, we about psychologies in interaction, and then like his book The Fisher King and the Handless Maiden. He wrote these myths, but like how they play out in our daily lives. So the way he used those books was beautiful, or those myths is beautiful, and they're really short and to the point, and there's a lot of meat to them. So see, I'm not trashing on Jung, but it's kind of like how Bible thumpers can have a life where there's no peace, there's no rest, there's no joy or celebration. There's just like quoting Bible endlessly at people, like just shouting them down, and like this argumentative kind of stance. And there's, it's it's like, who wants to listen to that all day? And same with people that get into Jung, for example, they kind of like preach it, and then within, and when people find a guru or whatever, well, guru says, guru says, guru says, guru says, guru says, and it's like, dude, go out and experience life for yourself. I want to hear what you say. If people post endless quotes on their Facebook from other people about enjoying life or presence or whatever, I'm like, I used to comment like, but what do you say, man? Like, what? Just tell me something that you observed today. Like, what? Tell me something about your life, or about like, did you have a good time feeding your dog? Like, just tell me something original, I don't know. That's kind of a rant there.
No, but I think you're onto something. Like, let's tie it back a little bit to the beginning, because I think the more I study on this whole idea of like emotional repression, I truly think radical undoing and this form of body work is one of the best ways of helping to free up what I like to call unconscious, emotional, repressed stuff. Essentially, stuff that we couldn't allow ourselves to feel, we won't allow ourselves to feel. It can't come through, it can't come out of us, and it's stuck in these bands of tension. So
it's kind of like exorcism of a certain sort.
In a sense, I mean, if you can't, like, you'll have
those forces are active in you, whether like you're repressing them, but they're active. Just like, so for anger, as an example, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly it comes out, and the dude punches somebody at the bar, and the other guy dies, and now you go to jail. That's,
right.
He wasn't in control of himself. So what is that? You know what I mean?
But you had talked about this. We can even tie it into your journey, because some of the exercises, for example, you breathe and you pound.
Yeah.
And if you talk to, I guarantee you, if we take 10 people off the street and we say, "Can you feel your anger?" I guarantee you 7 of them are probably going to say, "No, I never feel angry," whether they're man or woman.
And it's funny, they'll say it with that voice. You'll hear the anger in their voice too, though. I don't get angry, and you can piss them off, no problem. Yeah.
But back to the pounding. Over time, as you start to pound, guess what? That starts to come up. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? Like, we're really trying to access free flow of everything. Doesn't mean we act on it, but it's anger, it's sadness, it's fear, it's joy. So what was your experience like? Like, in the beginning, you had said something like you had gotten really angry in the beginning, and you went and there was some guy, I think, trying to date your girlfriend, and you took your hands and you pounded it on the table, and you kind of got in his face.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Like, learning to feel your own stuff.
Oh man, and it came in cycles too over time. Yeah, that was pretty intense, and I think I was upset a lot of that time, under the surface, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just not even standing up for myself, and even not like navigating the relationship properly, not even being aware of what I was doing, or how it was, how the whole thing was kind of a mess in the first place. So then it was easy for some random dude to come in and like mess up my life. So I wasn't even aware at that time of how absurd it was that like I could just walk away from the whole thing, and then there's no problem at all. So then I was attached to a specific outcome with the woman. So then I was tethered to her, emotionally, in a way where whatever was going on for her, then I would take that on. Oh, she's upset today. Okay, then I'll be upset too and try and solve that. And then all kinds of madness on that level.
But you had done enough to work through that, right? I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this. You evolved over time.
Well, yeah, at the end of that, I hesitate to use the word evolution, but just because, and it does apply here,
Right.
but I don't believe in the the Darwin evolution thing. They'll throw that out there, but so I stopped using the term, but then also relates to the term undoing, because it's more like I destroyed the implants, or destroyed, not implants, it makes me sound crazy, but destroyed the overlay or the tension armor that's there, or the ideas that the interpretation level. If you get rid of the interpretation level, then you can look at yourself and your situation and see it as it actually is. So I'm saying, like, I removed things that were causing me to function in bizarre ways, like tethers to someone else's emotions. I'll say this came to mind earlier, so this relates. For me, what it was, this trigger, especially in relationships, it was tied in this with this idea of a survival threat, but it was under the surface. I didn't quite extrapolate it all the way. I didn't understand why I was so terrified or like paralyzed about losing a relationship. You know what I mean? Or making the wrong move. So I would act really weird to try to keep these things together. And it was this sense that if I lost that particular person from my life, that then I would die like homeless and broke and alone in the street somewhere. And it wasn't like that would happen sometime in the future. It was like the feeling of that being about to happen would be present whenever there would be any kind of like breakup on the horizon. It would be like, no. So then I would just do anything, like ridiculous stuff to keep things together, go against myself and not really like be present at all. So I wasn't allowing myself to feel that intensity of that, like, oh, okay, I want this person to be in my life, but it's not going to happen, or like, or I don't want it to be this way, or they can come and go, that's fine. Like, and then feel the intensity, like, oh, I want them to be here now, but they're not. That's how it is for me now. It's like I might have a want, like, oh, it'd be cool if this person was around, or this friend, or that person comes to a workshop, or this person becomes a client, or this person shows up to work on the land, or whatever. But then when they don't, or if they don't, I'm sometimes curious about it. If it's someone I know over time, I'm curious if something is weird, but I also I seek to understand. And then with relationships, I'm just not tethered in that way, because now I don't have that survival threat. And if I did just die alone and broke and homeless in the street, that's not even a big deal, really.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't just be laying there paralyzed, you know what I mean? I'd go around and find something to do and find interesting people, and like, it just wouldn't really go that way. So it's curious that I had gone hitchhiking by myself and traveled all over the world and done all that alone, and probably was close to situations where I could have ended up dying homeless and alone on the road by myself, and I wasn't scared of it at all. But if I was in a relationship, then I had this fear under the surface that if I lost that one person, that it was just all over, that I was just a total loser and everything was over. And it's absurd when I say it out loud, and this is part of it. If you just say that shit out loud, it will evaporate. But when it's inside, it's just like a frequency of fear,
This is, just to pause you, really relevant stuff to millions, billions of people on the planet that have kind of this anxious attachment style. Again, I know we're not trying to use too many psychological terms.
I don't use any of those terms, but you're welcome to use them. Yeah,
I'll use them.
I just won't.
Just to give this, framework and context, like you opening up to energetic flow, right? You opening up to your anger, you opening up to your helplessness, like you broke all these molds and these paradigms and these deep-seated patterns. I remember, I think it was your video with Dev. You were in a foreign country and you were dating someone, and I think it broke up. And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. I don't even know the language. Like, I can survive on my own. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I was like, as just a viewer, like, I thought
I was in Bogota too,
Yes. Yeah.
And it was like, uh, and God bless that woman who I was with. I still we keep in touch maybe every few months on email, and anyone that I've ever loved, I still
Mhm.
feel like I wish them like all the best, and I would actually be happy if they'd come visit and stuff. For some people that's harder than for other people, but for me, I never understood like once you're deep with somebody, to me it's like, oh, that's like you can keep that, you can keep that door open. That's beautiful. Like, but a lot of people find the need to slam that door shut, let the plants grow over the trail, and
Right.
but I leave it open, and I'm always curious what happens with folks, or like to listen to them or to discuss our connection, the joys of that connection from the past when we rediscover it in the future. So to me, that's beautiful. And I thought of that when I thought of her. Um, but yeah, we had like kind of a contentious relationship, really beautiful, and shared a lot of depth on very specific things. Certain things that I've never probably experienced on that level with anybody else. I guess that's how it should be with friends and relationships, is that each one is distinct and unique. If it's not, then you're kind of probably on a script, right?
Right.
But with her and I, we shared a specific like love for animals and plants, and in a really certain way. It's hard for me to describe, but we both experienced it and knew that each other did. So we had that sweetness that was always there. But then there was like this just nightmarish battles, and she would get really upset, and some ways I acted or something would provoke her. But the issue is when she would get provoked, it was like it was over right then, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on. And again, I'm not talking shit on her. I'm not putting her down. I'm just describing the situation. Back then, I would have probably like made her feel bad for how she is. Now I would know how to not, that wouldn't happen anymore with me. That wouldn't go that way. Or if it did, it wouldn't be contentious. It'd be like, okay, go take a walk. That's fine. But my sort of clinging or whatever then would make it impossible for her to come down off that intensity. And then and she didn't want to be that intense. She would want to calm herself down and deal with it, but then I would want her to deal with it right then in a certain way, like no, it's fine, let's do this. So then that would feed the fire. And to save face, she would have to kind of stay with the anger, right? Rather than let me win. It sounds absurd again to say, but in the reality, I'm sure people can understand that on both ends. And it's good to understand that on both ends. So in Bogota, and then I had kind of provoked, and then one night she just left, and I was at some bar. And then I ended up getting back to the house like at 1 a.m. because I got lost in Bogota. I got drunk, and then I asked directions for some people, and they either misunderstood me or misdirected me. And I got on this Transmilenio train thing, and a couple younger people must have known that I was way out of my element. And I was like, I don't even recognize these parts. It's a gigantic city. And I was like, I don't even know where the hell we are anymore. And they're like, hey, come over to our family's house. They're having a party. And I was like, okay. And I went over there, and then it was like the grandma was there, and like some
Wow.
uncle. All these people were there, and they gave me a beer, and then my phone was dying, and you can't really get a taxi without the phone. If it dies, then they still want to verify it's you and all this. So then they called the taxi for me, and I used the internet at their place. But then I got back to my girlfriend's parents' house at that time, and like at 1 a.m. I had to ring the bell, and then she had already gotten all upset. So the next day I woke up and she was gone. And then we were just there visiting. We had our own place there as well. Later on after that, but at that time we had just come for a visit and stayed at the parents' house. And so then I woke up in the morning, and all my stuff was just sitting there, and she was gone. And then had her mom come with a note telling me I have to leave, and I was like, whoa, dude, like it's a good thing I have some money and stuff. Like this is I had too much stuff that I couldn't just carry it easily on the street, which is my mistake. I used to only carry when I was hitchhiking. I kind of learned, okay, even if I have a car or if I'm traveling, generally it's the best idea to only bring as much as you can carry, and unless you can just easily throw stuff away. And so I hadn't done that. So I packed my stuff up and I was just like, oh my God, like it hit me pretty hard, dude. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I went outside and then I was just like, dude, you know. So I got my stuff. I got a taxi. I went to a coffee shop that I really like. And I was like, well, first things first, I got to get a place to stay. And I thought, should I just fly back? Like, should I just get a ticket back to US or whatever? And then I was like, no, man, I'm already here. I'm definitely not going back right now. And this is, and at this time I'm feeling devastated, right? Because like, it seems like the relationship's over. And so I went and looked on Airbnb and I found a place that was somewhat nearby where I knew where things were and could navigate. And then it was like this big house, but with a bunch of separate rooms with separate bathrooms and stuff. And as I was walking in, some dude was walking out, and it was another American, a guy from Connecticut maybe or something. I still have him on my Facebook. His name's Chris. Pretty cool guy. And he's like, oh yeah, I have a Colombian girlfriend and stuff. We're going to go get you a SIM card. Let's go to the grocery store. Let's go, you know, deal with all this situation. And then I hung out with him and them for a few days. And then I started going around the city by myself. You know, I got the SIM card in the phone and hung out. And then we did end up reconciling, me and the woman that I was with at that time too, which was cool. We had a lot more adventures after that too. But that broke me open, you know, into there's another. We had one of these yesterday, somebody I have to block in the comments here. There we go. It's like a XXX dating website spammer. Oh well, so yeah. Anyway, long story, slightly longer. That experience, like I felt like from then on, I could go anywhere, anything could happen, and be totally fine. You know, to just kind of like navigate, and now even more so. Now, like I feel like I can find situation. I can kind of just automatically gravitate toward situations and people where everything I need or want will kind of just be taken care of. It'll be handled. It'll be easy to find. You know.
That's huge, man. I mean, just to stop you just for a sec. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's funny. There's no structure to any of this. Like, I feel like we're kind of like all over the place, and yet I love it because it's like that's life and that's reality. Like, it's this work at least keeps pointing me back to like break the mold of the fucking box of like anything you're in, and no rules to the degree of like don't trap yourself in that. But that says a lot about your evolution to go from where you went, right, to do this work, to have all these crazy fucking experiences, and then to literally go from I'm gonna die and I can't survive to fuck it, I'm in, you know, Colombia, and I have enough grounding in me, and I'm not stuck in my head, and I'm safe enough in myself to just go survive. That's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
I had a nice time too. It was great. I just went around and had my favorite restaurant there, so I'd go there every morning and just got back into myself, and it was cool. And then that actually led to the relationship being really good for a while because I kind of took the reins again, you know, and guided it into the direction that I wanted it to go in. So then that was pretty cool. And I don't regret being a part of any of those, you know. I occasionally would regret. Yeah, I don't like that word regret, but I would always like to have treated people better and to sought to understand where they're coming from rather than clashed, you know, with it. But all that in retrospect does kind of get redeemed or solved in a certain sense. Even if the connection between you and another person doesn't get resolved to your liking, I think we talked about that last time, that all the contents of you can still go back and you will understand where the other person was coming from and where you were coming from, and you'll be able to kind of see it all in like a gentle and accepting way, you know. Like you can at least see yourself through the eyes of the other person, and then accept. Like at the end of the movie, Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, that Bill Murray, excellent film. He says after the whole movie, and there's this interview that comes out about him, and it's all like, it's the truth. It's like all the good, bad, ugly stuff about him, whatever. And he's like looking at it, and he looks kind of down for a moment, and then he's like, I said those things. I did those things. I can live with that. And then gets back up and wanders off into the sunset, That line itself even helped me. I remembered hearing that a bunch of times and then realized, yeah, okay. Just actually accept it. Try and see yourself from a different perspective. See why you did those things. And then see the other people. Try and understand them too. And by understanding, I mean not having an idea about it, but actually knowing that if you were in their position and experienced what they went through, you would have done, said, and felt the exact same way. That's what understanding actually means. Not wishing someone would have done something different, not thinking it's possible for them to do something different, So the undoing then, like we discussed the memory flood thing. Maybe we could touch on that.
Yeah.
With the memory floods that come up with doing the undoing, I lost my train a little bit there because considering memory floods, and then they kind of start to happen.
Right.
But it's like when you remove the interpretation layer that's been there, that you've been perceiving, everything's been filtered. Everything's been edited. Like your own experience has been put into words and edited and put in little boxes and categories, and your ideas about other people. So that, if I said, and I've caught myself in the past doing this, and I stopped it, and then I was able to see clearly and went through the pain of having misunderstood and treated other people in ways that I wouldn't treat them now, ways that I don't like, in ways that were not aware and conscious. So now, when I look back, I can look back without seeing through the interpretive lenses. I just see it as events, including events that I was participating in. But there's not some kind of, my identity's not trapped in those old ways or anything I said or did or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? And I wasn't like some horrible dude. I mean, I think the most I did was like yell. But being manipulative or degrading or just, tearing people down, whatever it is. I can look back and see it like as more of an observer, and I'm not looking back through through layers of like, that woman, that she was an angry woman, right? So I caught myself in my mind about a woman from Argentina that I was with, from 2010 to 2013, who we've since gotten back in contact, and it's just an awesome connection. I can feel it, and I totally appreciate her existence. She's married and stuff. Her kid, who I knew at that time, was older, going to school now, and I just have this deep happiness about the fact that she's having an awesome life.
Yeah.
I can totally feel it, right? And the way that got reconciled was one day she came into my mind, and I was like, whoa. I realized she got put into a compartment in my head like, she's an angry woman. And then it just got closed. And I thought like, well, I don't know who she is now. I don't know how she is now. And that's kind of an unfair and like limiting way to describe her. So I just sent a quick message. I happened to look on social media, and she saw she was still there. And I was like, hey, I just thought of you, and I hope you're doing awesome. And that's it. And a couple days later, I got back this message like, whoa, I never expected to hear from you. And I feel the same. I hope you're doing awesome. And then we exchanged some messages where I left a longer voice messages, kind of going into detail about some things that had happened in the past. And we were both able to totally laugh about it. We were like, dude, we were both totally eyes closed on all these ways of interacting. And then we could, through that conversation, we could see how that experience actually, that nothing was wrong with either one of us. It was like this necessary experience, and it led us both to where we are now, and then and we reciprocated that appreciation. And it's like nice to know she's in the world. It feels good to know that she's doing all right,
But I think in order for you to get there, you had to open up. I'm trying to tie this back a little bit to just where we were at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
had to you had to open up the ability for acceptance of what you're feeling without interpretation.
yeah.
You have to open up your own flow so that you could experience life, and then you got to see things clearly as opposed to through that interpretive filter of what it means, and then keeping, because we keep ourselves in a box, and we can also keep other people in a box and hold all of our emotional shit that we've projected onto them over them for, we can do that for 50 years if we want.
Yeah, dude, people do that, huh? They oh man. Uh, yeah, whenever I catch something inside me that's like thinking of certain people and certain, there's a couple of people I want to seek, I want to prod into reconciling with me. And some of whom, we've discussed this in private, I'm not going to say who any of them are, but where some of them I know what the issue was, and I'm not sure yet how to kind of like get them to reply to me or whatever. And then other ones where I really don't exactly know. I can't pinpoint it, but I would love to have the conversation to find out how they interpreted it. And then I know that through what I described as understanding, if I get to the point where I actually have asked enough questions to where I do understand, that's a reciprocal experience, understanding. It's not an intellectual experience. It's actually like a sensory, it is partially intellectual, but it's also a sensory experience where when you, and it's a brutal process. It takes effort to get to there, digging and listening and effort. But when you get there, then the other person experiences it too, and then that's where forgiveness is a true and physical thing, where the forgiveness then means the stuff didn't even, it's as if the stuff didn't happen. You've now transcended it. Now a lot of people go, well, I forgive, but I'm never gonna forget. And it's like, dude, you're totally lost, and you're gripping your anger like a, like a dildo or something, you won't get rid of it. I mean, really, because it is like they're fucking themselves in their own life. So
We all do that. We all hold
yeah,
on to that stuff. But that
yeah,
that comes back again to the body work, my
yeah,
experience. The more
uh-huh.
openness is, you go through shit, but you're not. It doesn't get as stuck as it would. It's like you can get angry. I can get angry. You can get anxious. I was watching a fucking movie the other day, and I was so in it. I was scared. I was anxious. I was feeling all these emotions,
It's
but
pretty
I didn't.
fun, huh?
It was very intense. I noticed from all this work that maybe and you notice this, you feel more like the
Oh yeah,
whole idea of like a lot of the self-help stuff is people say, well, these are all the negative emotions and these are the positive emotions. Let me nuke all the negative stuff and just feel gratitude and joy all the time. And they miss out on the human embodied experience. The human embodied experience is let me feel all of it. But if I'm open, it's not like I'm stuck in anything for a long period of time. It's like I can feel it. I can either choose to, like we've talked about, I can choose to express it, or if it's not appropriate, I can choose to just feel it. Yeah, so I think for you, man, all the work that you've done, really, you kind of told the story beautifully. You're not going into the helplessness anymore if someone leaves or threatens to leave. You're solid in yourself, and I think that that's what everyone in the way, like, why do people watching this need to do the work? We all need to learn to be more fucking solid in ourselves and be able to handle life and open ourselves up to life. That's what this
yeah,
book should be. It should be called
yeah.
Mindful Undoing. Open yourself to life and open yourself to your feelings. And,
Right. I know, and it's so weird because I can get a sense for how people will interpret those ideas in the world of words, and then when the everything becomes grounded, when you actually do the body work and have the experiences, then you could come back and watch a video like this one that we're making right now, and you'll be like, oh yeah, dude, okay, I grasp that. But there's so much content out there now where it's like people, these the coaches and the programs and stuff about, where it's focused on the emotions and it doesn't seem to get people there. You know what I mean? It's like, so the obsession with the emotions is actually a problem. It's problematic. You know what I mean? Like, if we make this work about emotions, that's sort of like the opposite, because we're talking about becoming unafflicted. So yes, you'll feel everything way more intensely than you currently do. That, for me, when I first heard that idea, I was frightened by it. I was like, ooh, I'm going to feel more intense. And I also, when I heard the concept of raising my anxiety and frustration tolerance, I thought, oh, so I'm going to have more anxiety and frustration in my life? I don't want that, you know? So I actually resisted those ideas. But now that I have that, I've accessed that, I'm like, actually, okay, that's awesome. Like, that's amazing. I can just contain all these things and not be driven to any course of action because of them. So then, so as we discuss it, then I sometimes wonder how a person might be going with those ideas, because these ideas are almost secondary to the work. It's fun to discuss them. I enjoy it, and I think it's useful for people to find a way in. But it's like, once you do the face stretches, the shoulders, the flops, the laughing breath, the laughing, crying, the adventures, all the different stuff, then you're going to go in, then you're going to remember, like, your life is an improvisation. You're going to go off script, and then you'll be able to come and have this discussion, and then Jonah and I, if whoever we're talking to now, like, will be like equally kind of blown away by the way another person described. Well, think about when we get into discussions on the weekly group sessions, right? When you get to hear from like Tommy or Tyler or Adam, it's like, I'm all ears when those guys are going to describe their experience, because it's totally unique. They have their own life experience. They have their own way of describing it. So it's like, when I say going off script, once you do this undoing stuff, which is not really conceptual, then, to touch on the topic we talked about earlier, then you're not going to really need to be quoting other authorities anymore. You're the authority on your life experience, and then what you say, I want to hear. I want to hear it just as much as I want to read like a Bukowski poem or some Leonard Cohen lyrics or whatever it is. Because it's off script, it's improvisation, it's real. It's the person is in touch with themselves, and they are a unique creation, and they're no longer trying to live up to an idea of a human. They're actually just there as themselves, and then the mystery is not accessible. It's funny to say that. Then the mystery is evident, right? It's like, whoa, what is this guy going to say? You can kind of get a sense for the silhouette or the outline of the mystery that is another person, but you can never know what it is for sure. So then when a person is predictable, when they're on script, that can be tiresome. That can be kind of weird. That can be awkward and stuff like that. When I see certain people, and every time I see them, it's the same kind of 10 lines. And again, I'm not judging them at all. I even like some of those people. Some of those people are really fun. To make sort of a left turn here, I noticed something that with people, where when it's just me and that person, especially when I first meet them, the mystery will be present, and by that I mean their improvisation will be there. They'll come alive, and then if I get to know them, and then they have a sort of a friend and family group that they're close to, then either they won't want to hang, like I won't hang out with them in groups, or that I'll see that is only alive around me. You know what I mean? They're only allowing themselves to be that present and free when they're around me, and then when I see them out in public around other people, they're kind of like back on script again. And that used to frustrate me a lot. I used to kind of be like, why are you acting this way? You know what I mean? I'd ask, what's going on? Now I'm kind of more accepting. I don't even try to analyze it very much. But that used to be a source of frustration too.
But that ties back into I think where we kind of started is they probably, based on patterns, for example, are repressing certain sides of themselves, certain emotions, certain aspects of their personality. Because if you're open, it gives them permission, right? It's like if you're open, it gives someone else permission to be open,
Yeah.
whether they're aware of it or not. Yet around their parents, for example, where they had to learn to shut down and live within four walls, or most people where those patterns get evoked in them, they shut back down. That's why we do the work. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, why are we bringing our shoulders up and stretching our face and breathing, and like it's to open up that flow so you're not on script.
Yeah.
And
And being off script is so awesome, right? It's like you're just there. It's so cool. It's a beautiful thing.
there's
I was
also
gonna go ahead.
I was just going to say there's many levels of being on script, and I'm sure you've noticed it. Very subtle levels of unconscious scripting that you're not aware of until it reveals itself. You know what I mean? Like it takes time. What's that adage? Like you don't know how stuck you've been until you've been set free. So on the 500th time that you do a facial exercise, something may pop up, and it's like, oh fuck, I've never allowed that. Or you get some realization, and that's better than any book, any teacher. Your direct experience of the body of yourself becomes the thing. I'm just gonna turn my air off really quick because it's a little cold.
Yeah, no problem. I'm looking for something that relates here. It was in this book I've been reading by. It's called Monastic Wisdom, the Letters of Elder Joseph, the Hesychast, and let me see if this was here. If I can find it quickly, it relates. Here we go. It was. Yeah, I'll just read this and we can see how it relates here. If you seek justice in anything, when your neighbor treats you unjustly, or dishonors you, reviles you, hits you, persecutes you, or even plots against your life, you are unjust if you consider him to be the cause or passionately criticize him. For you are seeking from him something that God has not given him. If you understand fully what I'm telling you, everyone will seem unaccountable for whatever his faults may be, and only you will be accountable for everything. There are three enemies that fight the human race: the demons, our own nature, and habit. Except for these, there is no other enemy. Take away the devil that tyrannizes all mankind, and all of us would be good. Behold, who is to blame? It's him you should hate and condemn, and consider it to be your enemy till the end. The other enemy we mentioned is one's nature. As soon as a person realizes what the world really is, his nature resists against the law of the spirit and desires everything that destroys the soul. Behold, another enemy that should be hated all your life. This is what you should criticize and blame. In addition, we have a third enemy, habit. Once we grow accustomed to doing all kinds of evil, it becomes a habit to us and takes the place of second nature with sin as a law. And evil could even mean against oneself. It could mean judgment of yourself. It could mean, a lot of different things. And this also requires a similar struggle for God to change our bad habits and deliver us from them. Behold then the third enemy, which deserves complete hatred. So, if you want your neighbor to be good in everything as you wish, take away from him these three enemies with the grace you possess. This is justice. If you want to find it, pray that God frees him from these enemies, and then you will both be in harmony. Otherwise, if you seek to find justice in any other way, you will always be unjust, and consequently grace will keep coming and going from you until it finds rest in your soul. A person is entitled to have only the amount of grace that corresponds to how thankfully he endures temptations and how much of his neighbor's burden he bears without grumbling. There's something quite beautiful in that, from my perspective. Now, I'm in an embodied perspective. I feel the wisdom of that. I see in my life when I did not do that, when I blamed the neighbor or whoever. And now I see this other option was laying on the table the whole time. And it came to mind when we were discussing how when you're open and you're communicating with someone, they automatically, their body, not even their mind, their body feels permission. Oh my God, I can talk about this stuff. I can say, oh, cool, this guy, I've had people here in Croatia pull me away. A lot of men have approached me as I'm leaving the pub, and they'll say like, "Hey, Garrett, can I talk to you?" Yeah, let's sit here. They're no. They want to go to a different pub where their friends aren't going to be around, right? And then we'll have some conversation. I'm like, "Whoa, dude," and it's nothing extreme on my end, but for them, it's something they've never really shared, and occasionally I bring up the undoing work or whatever. I just say whatever comes off the top of my head in relation to what their issue is. But almost all the time, I see them then a year later, and they're like, "Yeah, everything's been great since then. I didn't do the undoing; they didn't do anything." You know what I mean? But they suddenly found this opening in me, and then they got permission in themselves, and then everything just went. And so that reminded me of this with this grace. If you are not a murderer, you're not in a tough situation, or whatever, and you do have the ability to resist certain temptations, or to just resist temptation to get angry and yell at the neighbor, for example. Just walk over and investigate, see what's going on, have a nice time. Then you are removing the lies of the mind. That's the devil in this case. Just the lies that people are telling themselves in their head, creating enemies of neighbors, creating enemies of yourself, hating the world, hating life, being afraid, being worried, being feeling shamed, all these things. Then your own nature, which is an enemy in a sense that you're like, we've been conditioned, to not flow with life, to not accept grace. And then the habits. So the neighbor could just have the habit of being provocative or whatever it is. But when you approach that situation with grace, with that flow, and just like I mentioned earlier, becoming curious, observing the person, even if you don't make a compliment, if you're just enjoying the clothes they have on and the way their hair is, they will feel all that, man, and they're not going to be able to make an enemy of you. It's impossible. And when they can't make an enemy of you, they're facing a double bind now. Right? They're like, what do I do with all this? You know what I mean? It's like, what do I do? And then that kind of wakes them up, and then might allow them to accept some of that same grace, and then it'll spread from there, from person to person.
You said it beautifully. I think this is probably a good end segment to tie it all together, but permission, acceptance, I mean, that's in a sense, why we do all this work is so that we can accept whatever we're feeling in the moment without interpretation and open ourselves up to our feelings. But if you're open and you give someone permission to feel whatever they're feeling and be themselves without making it bad or wrong or shaming, which comes back to that repression or emotional repression, people tend to heal. The most healing thing is just being open and saying, okay, feel what you're feeling. And you pointed back to that quite a bit. Just feel the sensation. Why are you calling it anxiety? Why are you calling it this? Get out of the labels of the mind and come back to the body and end the fake suffering of the mind. So.
Yeah, that's what it really means when I say that. Yeah, doesn't mean it's not that it's not horrible, and that the time I spent fake suffering, the years or whatever, it was intense. But then I look back and it was like, oh, okay, like there was actually like nothing was really going on. It was just the idea that something bad might happen eventually, and then I got all upset by it. So that's why I call it fake suffering. But yeah.
And at the end of the day, all of this means nothing unless, really, stretch your face, bring your shoulders up and breathe, and never listen to a podcast. And in some ways, you'll get more out of it, right, than hearing you or I, babble on. But I guess last point, let's just talk about this. You're doing one-on-ones now. So let's just talk about that.
Oh, yeah. So, just a small number of them, because like I said, it's such a distinct and unique body of work. And then the way I approach it is even more unique among the already unique, let's say, Reichian or embodiment milieu. And so divorced from like a lot of the conceptual stuff that plagues a lot of other approaches, in my view, that I decided to give a few one-off sessions for a limited time, for as long as I would like to, because I think people have that experience one time, and then they're going to want to go more and check out some of the other courses, or even if they don't, it's just going to be a pretty big turnaround point in their lives. But often when people do just the one session, then I don't have to go to the trouble of explaining a bunch of stuff. They'll know what I've been harping on about, what we've been trying to get across. And then from there, they'll also be able to see kind of the battlefield from above. When I say that, I mean more like spiritual battle, not like physical battle, but meaning this war that's raging within. And they'll see what it takes to find peace, regardless of the external circumstances, And so yeah, the one-on-one sessions, we're doing those. I usually only do a month at a time for minimum of $1,000. But for the moment, I'm willing to do. It has to be first-time session. It can't be people I've already worked with or that already got a free session in the past when I was doing that. But for $111, just to cover my time, and because I want people to be invested in it. I made the mistake early on of doing a lot of stuff for free, and it just didn't work out well for me or for the other people. There's a couple rare exceptions, actually, but there was people who just wouldn't even finish a session, for example. They would get intense, and they would just hang up the call or leave because it was free, you see? But if they put in $100, their body's gonna follow along. It's totally bizarre, that connection. But the same goes for me. When I used to download courses for free, Steel courses or whatever, download ebooks, they were just piling up. I never did anything with them. But now lately I bought like 2 guitar courses, and I do those every day. So there's something to that. We all know that, especially creatives or anybody who is in sales or does pays attention to how money works. But yeah, so I put the bar down a little bit to see who wants to try to jump over it. And I think people do need to have some kind of experience generally before they know if they're ready to go deeper with it. And besides that one session, as you know, when we first met and you had your first session, I try to do that first session. I do it in a really specific way that my goal, how like when you start like an old lawnmower with a pull cord, it hasn't been started for a while, and you have to like and like push the little button, the gas in there, and then prime the thing. So it's kind of like that, getting that engine of awareness and embodiment started. And so I want that first session. The first session is like pulling that cord on the person over and over, and that generally motivates them. They ignite this engine of personal or individual motivation. So my goal with the first session is always for that person to be ignited, for that engine to spark and turn over, and so that it runs on its own after they're done with me, or after they're done with even that one session. So that's my goal for that one session. And I want to meet some new folks. I've got a lot more awareness now than I ever did in the past. So it's interesting to me to meet new folks and see like why they're seeking this out. It also puts me in touch with my past and why I got started with this stuff. And then I think it's a little easier for people to come and meet me and then have the session and then consider, okay, jump on the weekly group sessions and get more consistent. So that's kind of why. And you urged me to do it as well. So I decided to. I'm not sure how long I'll be doing that for, but I have had quite a few folks hit me up for sessions, in the last couple weeks since we opened that up. So if people want to do that, there's like a PayPal link on my Facebook, or you can send me a comment or a private message here on YouTube, or if we're on Facebook, just send me a message directly, and then we'll get you set up. Pretty easy to schedule, and then once you have the experience, then all this conversation is going to make a lot more sense. Then your wants and desires and needs in life are going to be grounded, and then we can really address them and get you moving on the right track. So I guess for now it kind of makes sense for everybody to have a shot at doing one session. So they contribute a little bit, $111. And then I'll give it my all with their first session. And then it really makes sense at that point to have the conversation. Okay, should we go do the 28-day intensive thing? Or do the weekly session? Or go into do some of the work at home courses, like the social anxiety to social invincibility, or the Art of NGF series, or whatever, whatever stuff makes sense. One other thing I wanted to mention, I know you probably got to go, and I do as well, but was this real life NFT thing. I still love this idea, but I bought like a tape recorder with cassettes, and I think I can get the tape recorder, a reasonable rate. And I bought this DVD burner, right?
Oh,
and
nice.
like a stack of DVDs and CDs. So like this, just these still exist, and so the idea was, because NFTs are like a unique unique thing that can't be duplicated, supposedly, right? So I thought, well, what is a real life piece of art, for example, an original? Well, that's an NFT. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just not on a blockchain somewhere. So I thought real life NFTs with this undoing work was a person comes, they have their first session, and we discuss more in depth, an hour or so about their life and what they want. And then I would create sequences and a morning routine and all these things and burn that onto DVDs, right? The video stuff, and then create some audio tracks as well, like for the silent presence or the fake meditation, whatever. And then put stuff on a tape as well, and then mail that and then handwritten letters, and then whatever other stuff makes sense. I would tailor it to that person. But then in the box would be the cassette, the personalized cassette or cassettes, the DVDs, and the DVD player to connect to their TV, and the tape player, all in the box. You know what I mean? So to me, that I haven't seen anyone else doing that, but that I don't know if anyone else will care either. But I'm kind of excited about that, and if people take me up on it, then that's something I would love to work on. Go out, make some nice videos, walking and talking, but tailor it directly only to one person. Because that's how this work really is. I can make courses, and the courses are great. I recommend people do them. But what you'll find in the courses is all the stuff you end up doing gets you back to yourself and urges you to go out and improvise on your own. Become who you, like what Hyatt, my teacher, one of my teachers said, become who you are. Become who you are. There are no guarantees. Become who you are. It's a funny phrasing, but it makes total sense.
And you don't know who you are if you're living on script. So that's why we do this work. And when we started, we did a one-on-one session, and I remember it blew something open, and I had to drive down to San Diego later that afternoon. I think it was my buddy's bachelor party, or I was going down there to hang out, and I was in just this totally new space, and something opened up in my heart, and I just felt open, but I didn't really know how to articulate it. What the fuck happened? Like, it was just weird. And it was like, and it took me like 3 or 4 days to just kind of like, okay, let me integrate that experience and figure out like because the pieces were moved around. Let's just say that. So I highly encourage people to do a session, but I think this is a good place to end. And it looks like, did someone just comment?
Yeah, I just posted it. Just put it on. There's Ambika on Facebook said the statement makes sense. That become who you are. We're all in the process of relearning, inviting others. I would say we're in the process of unlearning, but that's me. You see, I pick at Jonah as well when people use certain language. I like to tear it apart for some reason. But I get what she's saying.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
and Ambika, if you want to try out a session, since you're here watching, send me a message and we'll get it lined up for you.
And I think at the end of the day, it all comes down that we have to experience. So maybe more in some of these subsequent live streams, we'll integrate a new exercise, or even just coming back to face and shoulders, because that you could do that a million times, and each time is a totally different experience, at least for me, and a deeper sense of connection to the body or stillness, or
yeah, you know what? Next one, I have an idea. Next one, just make note of it. Let's do for the next one, let's do. Oops, I just went in full screen here. For the next one, let's do this Esozone workshop. It was one of the first workshops I ever designed with the undoing stuff in Portland, Oregon. But I had it. I have this structure of it still in mind, and we could actually do it together live because the way it's structured is you do an exercise first, and then there's a specific concept that is related to the exercise, and so you just have free discussion around that concept. Then we go to the next exercise, then we jump to the concept, and you just go back and forth. So we could try navigating that together, and then that would be a showcase of how this work is not. It's not like a scripted thing. It's not on the level of, okay, follow these protocols and do this, do these, have these beliefs. It's like something altogether different, because that face is your face and this face is my face, and as I stretch this, certain things are going to happen. As you stretch that's your own unique experience then, right? It's not you following Garrett Dawn's morning routine where you repeat this mantra or something. You know what I'm saying? It's so not in that realm. It's so different than what that is, because it's your body, it's your actual, Anyway, this is awesome. Thanks for keeping me like remotely connected between the different disparate things. But I think it all does connect. And there is a lot of things that people are paying attention and listening to us. There's a bunch of stuff they can take and run with. They can test stuff that we said. That's what I'd recommend anyone do. Take one or two statements that hit you, either in an intense way during these videos, during one of these talks, and go out and test it, run with it, experiment with it, see what you can do to experience it. Yeah, that's what is important.
And everything we've talked about. I mean, we talked about the eyes, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and today you talked about seeing people. Like, I was in a market 3 weeks ago, and I saw this cashier, and she had the most beautiful green eyes. And I told her, I really saw her, because my eyes are continuing to open up. And it was like, holy fuck, like, to really see someone, you don't know what it's like until you know what it's like. It's not a concept. You can't read a million books on it. You have to open your eyes and then you see. But then to really see someone and for them to be seen, she was like a little girl almost, in the sense of like, oh my God, someone sees me. Like, no one sees me. And it was beautiful. I don't know. It was one of those things to slow down and to be present. And
and there's nothing required, right? You didn't have any needs, and you know what I mean? It's a complete experience, right? It's not, oh wow, this might mean,
right.
Yeah, you see it, you know what I mean?
It was just present. So I think all these talks are building off of each other. So yeah, we'll connect next week, and we'll do the next thing, and it'll be great.
Awesome, man. Always such a pleasure. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you and hearing from you anytime.
Cool, man. And I liked hearing your stories today. I think because you've done this for so long, all of that stuff probably feels like another lifetime, another person to some degree, right? It's good to pull some of that out, because at least from my perspective, looking at your transformation, that gives other people at least hope if they're struggling to leave a relationship or stand on their own 2 feet or feel their anger or feel their power, that this work can help them get there. And it's in a very unique way. But I think through our own evolution and growth in some regards, it shows other people what's possible. Because if you don't know it's possible, you sometimes don't know there's a way out.
Right. Great way to put it, man. Very cool.
Cool, man. All right. Well,
all right. Thanks again. Yeah, super fun. So we'll talk to you again. And if you end up with some time, between now and next week, hit me up. We can just jump on. Depends what's going on, but yeah, cool. All right. See you again soon. Enjoy.